This is Ask an Expat with Marcus and Matt from An Expat's Russia, where we answer your questions about what it's like to live, work, and travel in Russia. Hey guys, today in this episode we're going to share some funny stories of Americans driving in Russia. Matt, you were sharing a funny story earlier. I'd like to get to the details.
Sure.
Tell us more.
Sure. So I think anyone who's driven in Russia has got a number of funny or crazy stories. One of my favorites, I was driving with my wife from Moscow to Glazov, which is, I think, a little over 1,000 kilometers. And it's all over these back roads. So we're driving along, and then there's like this checkpoint, and it's a snowstorm too, which is ridiculous. And just to add to this, the night before we had stopped at a hotel, and someone just ran into the back of the car and just destroyed the bumper during the middle of the night. So I was already in a bad mood. We're driving, we get to this checkpoint. I don't even know why there's a checkpoint, but the guy pulls me over. He comes up and he's like, the first question they always ask is "Dokumenty," which is documents. And I just start speaking to him in English as fast as I can. Like, what? I don't know what you're doing. What do you mean? What did I do wrong? Why do you need what do you want? And he's just like, oh. And then he starts telling me in Russian that there's snow on the front of the license plate and that I need to do something with him. And I continue to speak English very fast. And he says, come with me. So I get out of the car. And actually, I saw him like wave us over to stop. I told my wife, be quiet, don't say a word, because if he knows you're Russian, then we're in trouble. And so I stop the car, I get out, I go into the like police station on the side of the road, and we were in Udmurtia, which is one of the sort of republics in Russia. And so very few people speak Udmurt, but this guy, he kept telling me, I know you speak Russian, I know you speak Russian, I know you speak Russian. And I just kept saying, no, I only speak English, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, he switched to Udmurt, so I couldn't even understand what they were talking about, the two police officers. And they were trying to decide, I guess, what to do with me or how much money to ask for. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, the one came over and he looks at me and he says, he gives me a telephone and he says, talk. And I said, what? So I pick the telephone up and there's this woman and she's like, Allo, sprechen Sie Deutsch? And I was like, what? She's like, no, I speak English. And she just continues in German. And I'm like, I don't understand. I tell the guy, I'm like, I don't speak German. I only speak English. And like this keeps going on. He's like, he takes the phone and he starts talking to her in Russian. He's like, он не говорит по-английски, не по-немецки. And then he hangs up the phone. And then he comes back to me and he's like, okay. And he starts telling me in Russian again. There's snow on the license plate. You have to pay such and such a number. And I just keep saying, I don't know. And now about 30 minutes have passed. And he just says, уходи отсюда. And he just like lets me go. And then he comes out and he wipes
get out of here.
He wipes the snow off the license plate. And he's like, уходи. So that was a funny story. I have a bunch more. We'll have to do another video like this. But what about you, Marcus? What was your funniest story driving?
Yeah, driving in Russia is one of my favorite topics just because of all the incidences that I had.
Sure.
Some were pleasant, some were not so pleasant, but probably the most memorable was, you drove in Russia with a Russian car,
yes.
right? With Russian plates?
Yes, we should definitely
distinguish
this because you were driving with a German car.
So I bought a car in Germany and I drove it to Russia in 2014. I drove from 2014 to 2019 the whole time, and I was, I had German plates the whole time. So people, when the officers
right.
at the side of the road, they could see that I didn't have Russian plates. Some people, they pull me over, and the way that they pull you over in Russia is they have this white and black striped stick, and they will point at you. So they're standing. They're not driving the car. They're standing. They'll point at you and motion you over. They're like, hey, you in that car, get over. And that was foreign to me, of course. But so the first time I was there maybe a couple months, and there was a bunch of traffic and I wanted to turn around. I was like, no, I'm not going to. So I was parked or I was sitting at a light, and there were a bunch of cars in front of me, and then there were two solid lanes, and then the dotted lane. The dotted lane is where you can make a U-turn,
Yeah.
and the solid lane is not. And the light turned green, and I was not going to make the dotted line where you could turn. I'm like, I don't want to wait anymore. So I made a turn over the double white line, which you're
I don't know.
you're not supposed to do.
Do you know that in Russia they could take your license for that? Like that's one of the most strictest offenses.
I'll get into that. So I didn't know that at the time. I was like, I was like, I don't know, a couple meters away from the dotted line. I'm like, I'm far, and these lanes are really far, so it wasn't dangerous because all these other cars were doing U-turns. I'm like, oh, I can make it. So I crossed the double line, and a cop in like this Lada hatchback turned on his siren, and he even used his megaphone, like, hey, stop your car. So it was a traffic violation.
Right.
He pulled me over near a gas station. It was on a busy, like, 3-lane, Volokоламsk, I should say.
Yep.
Going towards, outside of the city. I stopped at this gas station, so we had plenty of space. And the way that he pulled up, so I was kind of like here, and he had pulled up diagonally with the back of his car towards my driver's door. And he was only speaking Russian. He kind of got out, and he's like, probably thinking like, I'm gonna, I caught him doing a violation. Now I can ask for some money and make a buck or something. So I'm like, great, what's gonna happen? And so he gets out of his car, and he's walking towards me, and he was on kind of an slight incline, and his car started rolling towards my car because he forgot to put the parking brake on. And so my window was down, and I got both arms out of the window, and I stopped it from hitting. Like, I'm in my seat with my arms out, and I stopped it from hitting my driver's door.
Oh man.
And I'm holding it, and he's like, держите, like, hold it. and he realized, he's like, oh, and goes back to his car, and he gets in the car, starts the car, and like revs the engine and pulls it, much farther away, and then comes out. And the funniest thing is, I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, how can this happen? And, I'm kind of laughing to myself because it didn't hit my car or anything. And then the officer, I was appalled. He didn't say, he acted like it never happened. He walks up to the window. He's like, I'm Sergeant so-and-so. He'll say Sergeant ta-ta-ta, like his name. And then he'll say Documenty. So I was, in my mind, I'm like, is he really going to ignore the fact that he almost hit my car with a police car? And inside, I was just kind of smiling the whole time. I was like, I couldn't get it out of my head. And he still wanted a bribe. And he's like, that, you passed the double white lines.
Right.
I can take your license. And in my mind, I'm like, my license is not Russian. He can't take it. They're international. I mean, they're, American. And he's like, or, I can give you, or I can take your license away or suspend them. And I was like, I just said in Russian, just write me a ticket. I kept saying that. And he's like, do you understand that there's no ticket for your offense? You have to give up your license. I was like, write me a ticket, I'll pay, I'll just pay the ticket. And he's like, or we can settle this another way. And I was like, so, in Russian you'd say, выпишите мне штраф. Like, write me a ticket or write me a fine. And he would say something like, or, there's other ways. And I would say, in Russian, I said, на что вы намекаете?
What are you hinting at?
What are you hinting at?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, nothing. And it went back and forth, and I, pretty much didn't act like I didn't understand that he wanted some money. And he's like, I will close my eyes. I'll look the other way on this one and I'll let you go. And I was like, okay, thank you. And I was kind of still thinking about him hitting my car. And he's like, I'll let you go on this one. So that was probably that was my first experience getting pulled over, and the funniest by far. Actually, I have other funny ones, but that was pretty funny just because the cop almost hit my car, and like I could imagine like it was a busy street, so other people were seeing it,
Right.
So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was the funniest one, and I had somewhere, similar to yours where I just kept speaking English, and they're like, "Get out of here! Don't waste my time."
Well, I think what we definitely have to add to this video is that if you speak English, you are much less likely to actually get the fine. Usually, they'll just be like, "Get out of here," because it's too much work for them to try to figure out how to explain to you. Because under the law, they have to explain what you did wrong. They have to explain to you so you can sign the paperwork. Otherwise, it's invalid. So they're just like, "Oh, I'll just get out of here." Of course, I'm sure if it's a very serious offense like drunk driving or something, there's English isn't going to help you. But I mean, with these small traffic infractions, the rules are very different on the road there for some things, like the double lines. My wife explained to me that the double lines is essentially like a barrier. So like in the U.S., we have a guardrail between two lanes. And in Russia, they have two lines on the road that are white. One time I was driving, it was just on a, basic road in, around where we lived in Moscow. And it was going towards like the big highway, towards the ring road. And I was like, I don't want to do that because then it's going to be hard to get back. So I just like made a quick U-turn, like in the middle of the road, where I'm sure you'd get a ticket in the U.S. for doing that, but it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to park on the other side of the road. That's what it was. The parking spaces were just to the left, but there was a double white line in the middle of the road. And the road was going to go onto this highway. And I was like, well, no, I want to park here so we can go to the grocery store. And I just made a left, because actually in the U.S., anywhere you can do that. If there's parking spaces on the left, you can just cross the...
Which is odd in Russian. I wanted to get to a gas station, and there's a double white line.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do? You have to go all the way down and turn around. Yeah.
So, if you don't know the rules, speak English. You should learn the rules, though, because that's important if you're going to be driving a lot in Russia. But lots of funny stories. We'll have to get to them in a future episode. Let us know in the comments if you enjoyed these stories. This was Ask an Expat with Marcus and Matt from An Expat's Russia. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have a question about Russia, let us know in the comments. We'll answer it in another video.